Welcome to our introduction to the process. Today we're going to be focusing on meditation. And meditation means many things to different people. So if you are here, as you are here, my opening question would be, what does meditation mean to you? Is it a form of practice that you have? If so, why do you practice it? How do you do it? And I have my approach, but I hope that by hearing what meditation is like for you, what you hope to get out of it, what you are getting out of it, what you don't understand about it, what you do understand about all of that, that we can come to a place where my perspective and your perspective, my experience and your experience work together. So I can help you get more of what it is that you're looking for when you meditate. So does anyone want to share their experience of meditation, what they do, when they do it, how they do it, whether they want to be doing that more, or anything else you want to share about?
I'm happy to share.
Thanks.
So I've done a lot of different types of meditation through my life. I was taught transcendental meditation when I was 5 already, so I've kind of dipped in and out a lot
Did you
along.
say when you were 5?
Yeah, I had a pretty kind of hippie mother, so and I got what I would describe as stuck for a long time in a kind of very single pointed deconstructive style of meditation, which involved a lot of concentrative effort and trying basically, and often failing. And in the last several years, we've kind of discovered a much more embodied style, which is much more about resting in being in the body initially, and then discovering that experience of being is not confined by the body. So it's a kind of route inwards and through, and actually for me, rather than that kind of deconstructive peeling the onion layers back, it's been a more discovery of more like I'm this, but I'm also this, and I'm also this. So the kind of container gets bigger, which has been much more psychologically beneficial, I would say. So it's kind of more or less where we're. I mean, do you want to elaborate on that in terms of we have a similar practice, but
Well, before you carry on, that's great. I'm happy that you're here and that I can relate to your experience. And I'm just not to harp on it too much, but what did your mother have you doing when you were 5? I'm just so curious. I have a 4-year-old daughter. What were you
um,
able to do as a 5-year-old?
so it was TM, which is all mantra based. So it was essentially focusing on a mantra, and then the kind of main analogy that I remember from being 5 was um, kind of sinking beneath the waves of surface thinking. And actually, you were given a secret mantra in TM, and I misheard mine because I was 5. I thought mine was ink, as in the liquid that you write with, and for many years I just visualized kind of black, silky liquid that I would sink down into. And I used it, it was always a kind of like rescue remedy for me rather than a kind of practice when I was a kid. So when I was stressed or when I
Yeah.
was feeling sad at night or something like that, I'd meditate. But it worked for me at that point in my life. So
Thank you for your story. That's beautiful. And excuse my pronunciation, Johanna or Johanna, I think you're about to speak.
Yeah, no, I think if well, we have a similar practice or sort of the same practice, but I could say about why I'm doing it, and um, I think it's for well, for the last sort of 15 years, I've been needing to feel like I'm a part of nature, or that I'm a part of this planet, a part of the cycle of things, and I was failing to find that, and feeling like I was shut out and not a part of life, until I realized that I needed to look for it from the inside rather than trying to look for it from the outside. And and practice some subtle energy meditation, which focuses on which is very embodied and focuses on the sort of interoception and the sensations in the body and energy in the body. And but I very much felt like I was still trying and attempting things and consciously kind of trying to get places or reach states or that kind of thing. And so more and more, I found it most comfortable, just this style of meditation that requires nothing. That's just almost like sitting back into just being, and not requiring anything of me, because it makes sense. It makes logical sense to me that finding your true nature and being a part of life should not require any sort of effort on your part. That it should just be something that you can sort of sit back into.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm happy you share your your story with us. And again, this helps me to be more focused on what elements of meditation I'm going to speak about today. So thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. I'm not so sure how to use this Zoom.
Before you speak anymore, could you find a way to speak louder?
Is this better?
It's getting better. We're moving in the right direction.
I don't know. I can try to speak louder. Is this better?
I turn my volume up for now, if that's what you've got. I want to hear what you have to say. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. So I'm new to Zoom anyway, yeah. And I'm Tina from Denmark. I don't have a practice. I do wish to have a meditation practice. I heard you on Rogue Ways with Lindsay, and this is why I am here today. So I liked what I heard, and I have also, I like Lindsay's talking about meditation, and she has an introduction course that I'm following. So I don't have a practice. I am, I want to learn and hear how you do it.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I should get a map. You know how some restaurants have that map on the wall where they put little pin marks of all the people in all the world. I should get one someday, and I'll reserve a pin from Denmark for that. The first person I've met from Denmark, so that's exciting for me. Anyone else before we get started? I mean, I guess we have gotten started, but anyone else before I talk more about myself and what I'm offering? Okay, I guess I would start following what Dan said. I was exposed to TM when I was 5 years old, but not in the same way. When I was a child, my father used to go in the other room, in the bedroom, and he would meditate. I had no idea what he was doing. He didn't try and teach it to me. The only thing that I remember is that I asked him, how do you meditate? And he told me, there's no way to meditate. It's not something that you can do. And I don't remember how old I was, maybe 5 or 7. And I didn't think about this. I just sort of accepted that, oh, okay, there's a thing called meditation and it has no technique. So I went about my life. My father actually died a few years later, and it was the start or the initiation of a very hard period of my life. And when I was 24, that hard period kind of came to an end. I went sent to a treatment facility for drug addiction. And I knew immediately that I was going to learn to meditate. And I had it in the back of my consciousness, will say, that there was no way to do it. But that's not much of a teaching to say there's this thing called meditation, but there's no way to do it. So I actually started by reading A Course in Miracles, and it had these meditations at the end. And a year-long practice in which I would read something and then I would sit for varying periods of time. And I don't remember a single thing that I read in that book. I don't think I understood a single thing. But what was really, really helpful was that there was a framework, a schedule, and I was just going to sit there. So one part of meditation is that there has to be some structure, some intention, some impulse. Again, we're sitting here today. There is some amount of effort or thinking that gets us to here. And what we do after that, what we do after we have arrived and we're sitting in meditation, that's what we're going to discuss today. So what I would like to do is I'd like to teach through meditating together, and we're going to do it in I'm thinking at least 3 stages. So the first is we're going to try to do nothing together. And we're going to see how that works for us. And the less clear that is for us, the more technique I think we need. And the technique will be really subtle and simple. And we can hope that with a technique, with some subtle pointers, we can really do nothing together. One more person is. So my take on meditation is its primary function is relaxation and a clarity that comes through relaxation. When I sit with my eyes closed, I set whatever it is, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. There's nothing that I need to do. I'm not moving. I'm not engaging with anyone. I'm not doing any work. I'm not relating to anyone. There's nothing at all that I need to accomplish in this period of time. That's rest. That is the activity. The activity is to not be doing anything. And not doing anything affords us a unique perspective on our life. So the further we go into technique, the more I will speak about this unique view that it affords us and become more and more clear about that. But I want to start and see what happens if we just sit for a few minutes and don't do anything. So I don't have a tinshi or a bell, so it's just going to be the sound of my voice. We're going to do a short meditation for a few minutes, and we're just going to describe what makes sense to us about not doing anything. And of course, I will be speaking a little bit about that, giving us some words to contemplate. Okay. So again, meditation can be the easiest part of my day. I make it even easier for myself by closing my eyes. I don't even have to see things. I don't even have to look at my desk and think about all the stuff that I have and where it should be and what I need to do. So as I close my eyes, there's less information to be with. And this puts my focus more into my body, my thoughts, my hearing. And what I invite for you to notice as we sit here with no particular direction or focus is this, does this create relaxation in you? Is it enough just to sit here? And there's no real wrong answer. In fact, whatever the answer is, we're trying to evoke it. So again, I'm just going to invite you to share your experience as we sit here. Does this relax you? Do you relax? Where does your focus go? Where is your attention drawn? Do questions or concerns arise? It would be wonderful if they did, because that would help us provide you with more information about how we can create a more relaxed experience together. And we can just subtly shift our focus and create more relaxation. So this is the first prompt. I give no real direction on what we're doing. What happens? It's an experiment. Again, I just leave it open to share. We close our eyes. I give you no direction, no instruction really. What happens?
Me, there's often restlessness and feeling and like feeling like I'm bored, which I know is not true. But my pretense about meditation is like to touch in and think, okay, I did it. It's hard to just rest back and want to stay there. I want something to happen.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So again, there's this practice called meditation. Some people spend tremendous amount of time there. I have. If the experiences were consistently that you're bored, you're not going to want to spend a lot of time there. It's not going to be a love affair with meditation, a deepening love-based relationship that has you coming back for more all the time. So we want to know the things that you're saying, and we're going to look at how we can address them. Anyone else share their experience?
I do quite often do this kind of not doing meditation, but I find it often takes a little bit longer without a focal object. It takes a little bit longer to settle, and there's an oscillation. Like what I noticed this time was an immediate turning up of inner sensation. I could feel kind of tension from the day in my body, and then there was an oscillation to thought, and the thought was felt localized at the front of my head, and I can simultaneously feel my kind of nervous system down regulating. But there's without when you kind of free fall into that, I think, at least for me, it just takes a little bit longer than if I just came straight to my breath, for example, or straight to a part of my body. So.
Makes perfect sense to me. And of course, there's something in you that is willing to sit through that initial period. There's something that you are bringing, and some kind of motivation that you have that allows you to sit through the uncertainty of that point where there's no focus and it's a little awkward.
Although the pleasure of it is immediate at the same time. There's a kind of, there's movement, but I can feel the kind of sinking into that, following that
Right. Wonderful. So you know that something good will come at some point, and you're waiting for that at some point. Great. Anyone else share their experience?
Yeah. If you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, I think as I am not practiced, I'm not so sure what I what to say really. What I find here just now, I feel my heart beat really, really strongly. So I guess when I quiet down, I notice this a lot. And then I guess I also sit and wait what's happening. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. And again, you're not very practiced at this, and you're sitting and waiting. And again, I would just point out that even though you're not practiced at this and it's not obvious what you're doing, you're willing to be here. So you have some motivation that has you facing or sitting through this anyways, and that's wonderful. And we're going to talk more about motivation and how we can support this motivation even more when we do our second round. Anyone else?
I want to say something about the tinkering that I do, especially this morning. Is like I'm sitting here and almost like visually, like I was just outside doing stuff with plants, and I'm like still moving plants and thinking about where plants go and feeling into movement, and even in my body, how I think, well, if I adjusted this a little bit, or if I adjusted that, so I can see a part of me that wants to adjust. And I could really resonate with what Dan said about that kind of settling. It was just really obvious, like, oh yeah, this is what I'm bringing with me. But I could feel a lot of movement, or the energy inside, and that it's so different every time I sit. So it was wild today to feel a little more like just movement, a lot of movement.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I love the word tinkering.
I'll share. In contrast, I just came off of my morning meditation, so I'm like primed for this, which isn't really fair, perhaps. But it's my happy place, and so I am relieved to not have to do anything, to close my eyes and just get to not do. I
Right.
feel like a real gift.
Wonderful. As I speak to you, I'm checking out your new place.
Yeah, it's you might be able to see my little
I see it.
well, yeah.
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 Okay, well, I'm glad that we've met you in your happy place, and we'll see how what I have to offer as we go on can be supportive of that. Anyone else?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Okay. I live full time as a RV nomad, and so a lot of the times if I don't participate, it's because I don't have any phone signal, let alone Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Today I do, so it worked out good. And I just came off of meditation. I do a Kundalini meditation first thing in the morning as soon as I rise, because I find my brain waves are still at the lower cycles. And when I drop into this meditation, there's just this sense of non-doership. It's just an awareness. And then when thoughts arise, they're more like just clouds passing by. So it feels really good to be in this type of a meditation. So yeah, that's my experience.
Wonderful. You and my wife would have a lot to talk about. She wants to buy an RV, and she also does Kundalini yoga. She loves it too.
Yeah.
So again, this is something that's a little bit different than Kundalini. We're not trying to build energy so intensely as Kundalini does. Again, there's no doership as you describe. And when you speak about awareness and passing clouds, that's where we're going to go next. So, anyone else before we continue? So if I was in this class, I am in this class, but if I was in this class when I had done my year of sitting with the book that I just referenced, the practice that I just referenced, anyways, a year of meditations that I didn't understand, where I just sort of sat there, I would be in a similar place to a lot of what I've heard, as I'm here and I'm kind of waiting for something to happen, and I don't really, I want to be here, but I'm kind of getting it and I'm kind of not. And what really came next for me was that I got some very subtle pointers. So that's where we're going to go next. I'm going to give you some very subtle things to notice and look at, and we're going to see how this shifts our experience. So this is a very small shift from doing absolutely nothing to engaging our curiosity. And other than just sitting here and not doing anything, I would say that there's another element, and many of you have spoken to it, that we're motivated to discover something, to discover, to find, to feel connected to. We might not know our motivation in words, but we're here. There is some driving motivation. And so as much as we're sitting still and doing nothing, we can actually engage that motivation directly. And it can be a longing that seeks something for a relief of pain, but also it's curiosity. And so we can engage our curiosity a little bit. So I'm going to close my eyes again, and I'm going to describe this moment, and we're going to see if it feels like that to you. So Dan spoke about anchoring in the breath. There's lots of techniques to anchor ourselves, to give us something to do. And this something that we're going to do, that I'm inviting you to do, is just to see if this is what it's like for you. So I close my eyes, and again, I don't have to see. I've removed that from all the stuff that I have to do. One last thing that I have to do. Naturally, a deep breath comes to me. And since I don't have any particular objective, I can just start becoming curious about what consciousness is. How does this moment actually work? What's happening now? Perhaps there's some new ways in which I can discover what's happening while I'm not doing anything. So what strikes me right now, first, is that I can feel my body. And as I feel my body, I just notice it doesn't take any effort to have a body at all. My body is not something that I'm doing. And I don't know what my body's going to do until it does it. If I don't try to control my breath, or my thoughts, or my feelings, or my sensations, if I don't try to control my tinkering in any way, I notice that it kind of happens on its own. Whether it's a sensation in my foot, the quality of my breath, I'm just noticing things that are happening on their own. And by the time they've happened, by the time I notice them, they're already here. You could say that I'm discovering what's happening right now. My body is a discovery. My mind is a discovery. I never know the thoughts I'm going to have until I become aware of them. So I sit here. I don't do anything. And I watch. Everything keeps happening on its own. And my question is that true for you? Is it true that everything keeps happening on its own? And this everything that keeps happening on its own for me is a flow of experience. It's a movement. The sensations of my body are moving. My thoughts are moving. The sound of the birds that I hear are moving. The sound of my voice is moving. Everything is moving. And I'm just sitting here, not doing anything. It moves on its own. And now I have a subtle job. Since I'm not doing anything, I can just watch things move on their own. I can become fascinated by the fact that I have no control over what happens next. If I just sit still, I watch things happen that I didn't know about. Nobody asked me if those birds could chirp. Nobody asked me if my foot could be itchy, if I could feel tension in my chest. Life doesn't need to ask me. It just moves on its own. And this is true for the things that happen outside of my body, like for your perspective, Blaze's voice, and from my perspective, the birds and the sounds in my house. But also, it's true for what's happening inside my body. It's true for my thoughts. It's true for my emotions. It's true for the sensations and energy of my body. I just become so curious. Where does this movement go if I follow it? What happens next? And I can think about what happens next. I can have thoughts about the sensations I'm having, or the plane just started flying by. Or I can just feel the movement. My whole experience is alive and moving. And I just feel that. You don't have to ask it to move. That's just what life does, it moves. So in this, our anchor, our activity, is to pay attention to this quality of movement and to notice that it happens on its own, to become curious about both the nature of movement, whether this is true, but also where it goes and what happens next. You could say that our activity is to become absorbed in a quality of our experience. We're giving our attention, we're giving our curiosity to this quality. That's a very subtle doing. We're not actively trying to repeat things or think things or stay in any particular way. Perhaps you could say we're just enjoying the fact that life is moving. Okay. So I just invite you to share if what I say feels true. Is everything moving on its own? Or is it different than that? And also, what is it like for you to pay attention to this quality of movement, to feel the sounds and sensations and thoughts move through you? It's open for your sharing, please.
Well, for me, it's super stilling, like I can feel stillness in watching the movement. Um, and initially, I felt like, it's I was aware of almost like a band-aid, like peeling myself away from like the computer and connection. There was something that was a relief to me. This might make sense to you, Blaze, knowing a little bit. Like there was a relief that everybody had spoken, and then I could peel away a bit. Not just that they spoke, but like somehow that connection was clear, and this realization of, oh yeah, I'm here instead of here. And then with the direction of just watching the movement, um, and then the accompaniment felt more stilling as opposed to movement creating, if that makes sense.
Right. So again, my translation, and you can correct me, is that by really paying attention, by having something all-inclusive to pay attention to, it quiets you. And we're not contracting on a particular part of our body, or we're not trying to do anything in particular. We're just focusing very gently on the movement that's happening everywhere, on the effortless movement that's happening everywhere. But to focus on that, I actually have to relax, because this movement is everywhere. There's movement everywhere in my experience, in my personal experience, in my body. I have to actually be quiet enough, relaxed enough to notice that. So this kind of focus actually requires relaxation. It induces it. And instead of saying, I should be relaxed, my prompt is, can our curiosity make us relaxed? Can our curiosity bring us quiet? That's what happens when we read books or when we listen to music. We really want to know what the music is going to sound like. So we stop talking, we just pay attention to it. When I read a book, I really want to know what the words are. So I stop doing everything else in my life, because this is where my curiosity has me. Similarly, rather than doing nothing in a complete and absolute sense, there's a subtle paying attention that stills my mind, because I really want to know, what does movement feel like? Is it true that everything's moving? And this brings me back to myself in a way that creates stillness. Does that sound true?
Yeah, that sounds true. And I really appreciate the like the depersonalization of it, of just movements happening, life is happening. Mhm.
Yeah, wonderful. And again, to everyone else, how is it for you? And two questions really. One is, does it feel like everything is moving on its own? And when you notice this, what happens to you?
Yeah, I'd love to share on this. It does feel like everything is happening on its own. Yes. And it's, I think you were the first teacher that really pointed this out, and I have found that to be a very profound shift. And the practice that we just did, even in that short space, really created a shift for me that felt like turning on a receiver, is how I would describe it. It's as though we're walking around the world as a speaker, like projecting, and all of a sudden somebody turns the dial and you're a receiver instead. And it's a quieting effect. It's a relief. It's a letting go. Like all of those things happen when the receiver turns on. It's my experience.
Oh, such beautiful language. Yeah. Again, as we, I don't know what words, if I'm losing the words that you use, but as we go into that quality, what we can ask for is more sensitivity to the movement, to get more out of life by being more sensitive to it. I'm asking more out of the birds and out of my anxiety and out of my feet, not by trying to will them into being more, but by becoming more sensitive to what's actually happening there, by tuning in to the fluid quality of movement that's happening in my body. How much can I notice movement? How much can I notice energy? And it's, what is it that moves? Yes, a plane, a bird, yes, but what really moves experientially is energy or consciousness. This is a way of listening to consciousness, listening to energy. And to listen to it, I have to be more and more attuned to it. By following movement, I have to become more and more attuned to it. And ordinary things, like a bird, I start to feel how alive they are. And the more I feel that life is alive, the less I need to do. Implicitly, I don't need to do so much when my whole experience comes to life. It's inherently satisfying. It gives direction to my meditation. What am I doing here? I'm feeling this movement. I'm feeling this life. And we can yield to that. Anyone else want to share their experience?
Yeah, I find that when we do this meditation like that, this is like the open focus meditation. And when I'm in that space, I find that it removes me from the doership. And then when there's no doership, then it opens up this just being, and there's a connection to the awareness, I guess.
Right.
When you're out of the doership mode, there's nothing to do. It's just spaciousness and
Right.
observing. Yeah.
Right. And we'll talk. I'll speak directly about awareness in a moment. We'll get there. Thank you. Anyone else? Again, specifically noticing everything's moving on its own. And what does that feel like if it's true?
It was interesting in that that yes, it was true, and everything was moving on its own. And so actually then or for the first time really, I managed to feel like I was the one that was the only thing that was still. Because, and there's a subtle want in me, or not even a subtle, I admit it blatantly, that I chase for feeling awareness, and I'm kind of there, I'm going like, okay, am I this idea of this awareness that penetrates everything, I'm chasing it, and it's supposed to be obvious, and it's supposed to be there, and it's just kind of like it's that close, but it's as if I guess I previously I kind of like I can feel my sensations, I can feel things moving, but it's like I can't get beyond that.
Yeah.
And the idea of, it's like, okay, I'm aware of my body moving, I'm aware of sounds, I'm aware of sensations, but that awareness, being aware of that awareness, it's like I get stuck there, and I'm chasing after it and I'm trying to catch it.
Yeah.
And there, it's as if the way you guided, I felt as though you were pointing to this I that was still, that was the only thing that wasn't moving when everything else was moving. But I was surprised that after that you then guided us to kind of pay more attention to that movement and actually go into that movement, when I was kind of almost expecting for you to point us the other way, to look back at that thing that isn't moving, that's the open awareness. So
Can I talk with you about this a little more? I'd love to
yeah.
go in. So we'll leave awareness, we'll get there. But I heard you say, I think this is wonderful, I chase awareness. And I just want to take a moment. What does that feel like in your body to chase awareness? We just ask that quality to present itself as we name it. Well, it's good if we can feel it. We're not trying to not do that. In fact, if anything, we want to do it more, but we want to feel it. So when I say to you, you chase awareness, what does that feel like in your body?
I don't know really. I guess it's a sort of, I don't know what it feels like in my body, but it's like it's more of a kind of like a distractive thought, that's sort of like an analysis,
Okay.
that's analyzing the meditation and that moment, like, is it here? Is this
Right.
it? Is this awareness?
Yeah.
Is it inside me? Is it outside of me? Can it be both? How can it be both?
Right.
And it's like a kind of, I guess, a restlessness, perhaps. I don't know.
Great. Let's call it a restlessness. That's a great word. And again, what you're really clear about it is that it comes in the form of thoughts. And I just say the word restlessness, and I just invite myself to feel this. It's the way it is. And my question is restlessness something you're doing, or is it a movement that happens on its own? That's my question for you. We wait. Here comes an analyzing thought. Did you know it was going to come, or did you just become aware of it? Is it just happening on its own? There's a stream of thoughts and restlessness. We can identify it because we feel it. And we can feel it because it's moving. It's alive, just like everything else is alive. And we can let it live. Thoughts can live, sensations can live, restlessness can live. And as we pay attention, we'll start to notice, where do these things go when I let them live? They're going somewhere. If I just follow the movement of my restlessness, what happens? Where does this take us? So what do you notice as you hear me speak about this?
More thoughts, more questions.
Right. And
um,
are you generating those, or do they just kind of arise on their own?
mm, I guess, well, I mean, they are arising on their own. And it's as if they arise from, I guess in a way, they arise from a constriction or a kind of holding on. It's as if I'm holding on to a certain learned understanding or identification or
Right. And I just seek to follow this movement, just as you describe, you're holding on. And I just follow the flow of sensations. Where does it feel like you're holding on? Just imagine that this movement takes me and you, as we allow it, to the felt sense that you're holding on. We just feel that. We just feel the movement of holding on. And the way we're going to get rid of this, so to speak, is not by stopping it. It's because it's going to move more. It's going to move more if it's going to stop holding on. So we want to go towards it. I'm inviting us to go towards it, feel it, and let it live. Because it doesn't take any energy to let things live. It takes energy to fight things that are living. It takes energy, at least we feel it takes energy, to fight our thoughts and our sensations and our striving and our holding on. It takes no energy to allow them to live, because they already do live. And my question is, what happens if we just let this move and live and give our attention to the felt sense of it? We're not trying to focus on awareness. We're trying to focus on what it actually feels like to seek and to hold on. Again, I just invite you to share what you experience when I say this.
mm, it's as if I can't I don't know. It's like as if I can feel lots of things. I feel a really strong pulse of energy. I feel constriction in my solar plexus.
I think it's wonderful that you can feel a constriction in your solar plexus. I believe that the movement has actually taken us here, and this is good. Because what I would describe is we're moving towards the source of your striving. First, we were at the symptoms of it, which is that you're thinking, you wish you were in awareness, but as we actually move towards all this, it takes you to a very specific point in your body where you're holding on. And there's a lot of energy here, and that's great. And if we keep moving towards it, it will move more. And the more it moves, the less it will be an expression of holding on. So even though it feels perhaps like we're going towards constriction, I believe we're moving in the right direction. And we've been guided in the right direction because we've just followed the movements that are living. They've taken us here. They've taken us to this place in your body where there is a constriction. And if we stay here, it will just keep taking us deeper and deeper and deeper into that which wants to live and move. Life wants to move. In the places where it's not, it won't feel good. If we're drawn into those places in our body, it's not because we're doing anything wrong. It's because the energy that's not moving, that we're holding, that's stuck, wants to live. This is where life takes us. So we learn to follow back to the source of our thoughts, which is always going to be in our body. And we learn to appreciate the opportunity of allowing movement to happen where there hasn't been movement before. And this may feel really comfortable. It may not feel comfortable. It may make sense now, it may not. But we're going to try another way of going about this in a second. If you have any final comments about what I'm saying or what you're feeling now.
Well, I'd say it's beautiful what you said. I think it's really beautiful, the idea of life wanting to move. And also that I don't know if I think I didn't say, but I wanted to say that I can't follow my thought into my body, that I don't understand the connection between my thought and my sensations. But then I didn't say that. I just described to you what I felt. But I didn't believe that the sensation of constriction in my solar plexus was necessarily anything to do with the thought I'd had. But now, after what you said, I do believe that's exactly what
Right.
it was pointing to.
And sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, that's fine.
And I invited you and I'm supporting you, but it was you that told me that you had a lot of energy and you were drawn to your solar plexus. I didn't tell you that. So what I witnessed in you is you started by having thoughts, you acknowledged them, and I kept asking you to tell me, what do they feel like? What does seeking actually feel like? And the felt sense is it's a movement. We're attuning to movement, and you move towards naturally that which is most important. We always will be drawn, if we follow the movement of life, we'll always be drawn where we need to go.
Well, actually, there's more movement in my kind of pelvis or my base, or at the sort of back of my pelvis, which is making me move physically. My body is rocking backwards and forwards gently, but this constriction is not really moving. It's like a knot.
Yeah.
But we'll see if life wants to start moving there also.
Right. And so again, we don't have to contract on this right now as we described it. We're having an open focus. We're following all the movement. Again, this includes what's happening in your pelvis and the sound of my voice and the feeling of your breath. We are open to all of the movement. This contraction that is active in your solar plexus is part of that. So there are places where there's movement, there's places where there's not. For now, we'll just let that be.
Okay.
Anyone else before we go in again? Okay. I'm feeling more alive the further we go because I have a lot of curiosity. So I close my eyes, I hear the sound of the birds. I feel and hear the sound of my own voice speaking. I'm feeling everything that's happening. Of course, I lump hearing into feeling because it's a movement, something I'm experiencing. And so I'm feeling my whole experience, but especially what's happening in my body. And my simple prompt is everything is moving on its own. The wind moves in the same way that the bird craws, in the same way that my voice speaks, in the same way that I feel energy in my body, in the same way that my thoughts are flowing. There's one experience of movement. Inside my body, outside my body, right now, it doesn't matter. Everything's moving. And my next question, what I become curious about next is, what is it moving through? Where is this movement happening? What is it that allows everything to move? And it's been referenced a couple times. I would say that everything is moving through awareness. That's why I'm aware of movement. That's why I can feel my breath. That's why I can feel the energy in my body. That's why I can hear the crow, whatever bird that is, because I'm aware. And awareness is not a movement. Awareness is an empty, awake space. So I can also shift my experience to the experience. I can also shift my focus to the experience of being aware. If I'm having this experience, if I can hear Blaze's voice, I must be aware. It wouldn't be possible if there wasn't awareness. And one of the wonderful things about awareness is it can't stop anything from happening. Wouldn't even think to try. Awareness doesn't stop my voice from happening. It doesn't stop the wind. It doesn't stop the bird. It doesn't stop my thoughts. It can't stop anything from happening. It is non-resistance. It is acceptance. So in this way, you could say life is actually a marriage. This moment is a marriage between acceptance, or I should say between movement and a pure acceptance of what is moving. And that's what this moment is for me. Everything is moving, and awareness is allowing it to move. Awareness offers no resistance to anything that's happening. Awareness doesn't resist my fear, my anger, my sadness, nothing. It just is an open space forever. And who is it that is aware? Well, I am aware. In fact, I would say that the word awareness, this awake space, feels like the words I am. Or beingness. Again, I'll invite you to share what awareness feels like for you, but I take a step beyond that and I put it together. What this moment is awareness. I am accepting everything that's moving. I don't have to try to accept things to move. In fact, I can accept trying not to let things move. I can accept not accepting. It's implicit. Awareness allows every thought, feeling, and sensation, everything that's happening inside my body or out, to move through it. It is the place where everything is allowed to move. And I can focus on the movement. I can watch it move. I can watch it be allowed to move, or I can focus on the space, which is not resisting, which is fundamentally okay. Or I can do both. So I say that awareness feels like an empty space here that feels like I am, that everything is moving through. Does that feel true for you, or is it different?
I think it does feel true. When I choose to rest my attention in awareness rather than the movement, there's an immediate kind of diffusion of I am generally. So I am is non-localized to, I mean, there's a sense of a kind of localization at the same time. There's a kind of duality there, but then there's a merging and a kind of boundarylessness.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Just to follow up on your boundarylessness, if I asked you how big is awareness, what would you say?
I know the correct answer, but in that experience, then I guess it was.
I'll get you out of the correct answer. What does it feel like to look for the boundary? If I give you the task of looking for the boundary, what does that feel like right now?
There's a difference between the kind of imagined sense of the expansion of I am and then actually looking for the boundary is I can't find the boundary.
Wonderful. And I just enjoy the experience of not being able to. Yeah. Wonderful. And again, just as you described, there's a diffusion, but there's also some sense of self as a density in the energy of the body. We're not trying to do away with that. If you didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to call your name. But for now, we just notice that this diffusion leads to the experience not being able to find the end. And we could call it a relaxation of focus.
Yeah.
And if I were to ask you about Dan, you could tell me, where you're from, like you did. If I asked you, what is awareness like? Personify it for me. What qualities does awareness have? Is it a good friend?
Yeah, and there is definitely an intrinsic okayness, safeness there. There's a kind of, so it's kind of fundamentally reassuring,
Right.
which is also kind of very relieving.
Right. And how does it treat your body? How does awareness treat you as your body?
With acceptance, with non-judgment,
right.
with a genderlessness.
So now we have kind of filled out, we have clarified what doing nothing means. We don't have to accept things because we recognize there is this awareness that only accept things. So the doing of accepting is really to recognize that that's happening. And now when we do nothing, there's something happening even though we do nothing. There is an acceptance that's happening. We feel it. the more we can identify these qualities of awareness, this boundaryless space, the more we even look for the boundary, the more we recognize something that's doing the work of meditating for us. So we came here maybe to be more accepting or more kind to ourselves or more loving. And what we discover is there is already a force of self, of consciousness that's doing that. Okay, anyone else describing awareness?
My report is a little bit less of a description and more of a question of when you say I turn my attention towards the experience of awareness and I ask, is awareness an experience? Because it seems to me, it feels to me that an experience immediately puts us into a duality of experiencer and experience.
And if you ever find yourself in that duality, then well, I guess I'll say it this way. So we can have all kinds of relationships as we go progressively. It depends on how we perceive these different elements. And so for now, awareness can be the self. Absolutely. That don't want to take that away from anyone. And one day I realized that awareness was something that I was experiencing and that I wasn't awareness. That happened to me. And now it's less differentiated, but I would say that awareness is something that happens in me. I'm not even aware. I don't even exist. What is most true and fundamental is me is I don't even have qualities like awareness. The name awareness is hosted in no self. But to be identified with awareness, for that to feel like self, for that to be a home that we don't divide ourselves from is wonderful. It's not wrong in any way. I just happen to call it an experience because that's what it is for me now. But the invitation is, for me, what happened is I wanted to be awareness and I was troubled by all the things in my body or mind. Awareness was a really attractive thing to be because my body and mind was not so attractive. That's where there was pain. There's no pain in awareness. And what happened was I was gradually forced to live meditation, which is allow things to move. That's the awareness wants everything in our body and mind to move. And so as I sit here, as I can rest in awareness as much as possible, but my focus is going to be drawn into the body where movement wants to happen. And eventually, when there's enough movement, I stop being able to tell the difference between awareness and movement. I couldn't qualitatively tell the difference between awareness and energy. It all sort of felt the same qualitatively. And as awareness in the body felt the same qualitatively, it was seen to be a unified object, which I'm experiencing. But the meditation, as I teach it now, what I'm focusing on is that some people are going to really be clear about awareness. That's going to stand out. They're going to say, I'm not my body. I'm witnessing my body as awareness, the sense of I am. And other people, that's not going to be as clear to them. And they are going to feel maybe love or desire or energy or light. They are going to feel more the movement of life. Neither of these is really a right or a wrong answer. Life is going to require that we put these two things together into a unified whole. My experience of this moment is awareness is the space where everything is moving. And they are going to try, these two qualities are going to try to unify each other. If I sit here, they're going to try and unify each other. I want to reach a kind of an equilibrium. And mostly what that equilibrium is going to move is that my body is going to have to catch up. My body is going to have to start moving. So resting in awareness is going to facilitate a tremendous amount of movement. But as we saw with, I still don't know if it's Johanna or Johanna, so I'll just say both. As we saw with her, so will following the movement itself. Following the movement itself is also going to facilitate movement. In this way, awareness is not the prime focus. It's kind of in the background doing the work of accepting and allowing. And we're more focused on what's happening in the energy of our body. And that's a just as valid way to meditate, is to be sort of entranced by the living experience of movement. And the duality again that this will close is the duality between awareness and everything that we are aware of. That will close. Life does not want to hold those things separately.
That feels true. Yeah.
And for some people that will feel more comfortable or obvious, or will be more willing to do that, and other people not so much. I would say I've been forced to do that. A tremendous amount of pressure has been put on me to resolve the duality between I am and life, trees, birds. Other people, and I hear Joanna speak, the trees and the birds and the planet, that we can be felt and pulled by a desire for connection. And not that you don't have that or I don't have that, but that can be a motivation for movement to occur as well. Because awareness won't really unify you with everything. It'll make you kind of the container for everything, so to speak, but it won't give you the felt sense that there's no difference between a tree or the wind and my thoughts and my feelings. That only comes from my experience because the body is moving at a way in which the body does not feel separate from everything else in our experience.
Sorry, say that again. The unification comes when the body doesn't feel separate from everything else.
Right.
Your experience.
So again, with Johanna or Johanna, we follow the seeking back to a place in which she says, I'm contracting, which means that we're holding energy, it's not moving. Where we're holding energy and it's not moving, we're going to feel qualitatively separate.
Yeah.
So if we discover that, that's the best thing that could happen to us.
Because it's where the freedom lies.
Right.
Yeah.
Our problem, I'm separate, I wish I had this, that actually leads us to the source of that problem, which is a very specific place where we are holding ourselves separately.
Yeah.
And as that relaxes and the energy moves, it won't feel like that anymore. We won't generate thoughts like that anymore. We won't identify that way anymore. So we can follow the movement in that way.
Totally. Yeah. I love your words. You just said it again. If we follow the flow of life, we will always be drawn to where we need to go. Beautiful. Perfect. So it takes you right to the heart of where your own unification solution, if you want to call it that, lies.
Absolutely. And what that will actually mean as a direction is it will take you into your body. It will either take you willingly or non-willingly. Awareness will either be drawn there because you're engaging with me and you're curious, or it will do it on its own. That's where it's going to go.
And it's really never outside the body, is it? I'm just trying to think.
The last time I taught in an open way, I got into a thing with a man who told me, I said awareness leaves the body. He said it didn't. And I was just really caught off guard that I had a disagreement with somebody about it. But for practical purposes, I would say that it does. Yes, awareness is a container where everything happens, but my experience is that if we can't feel that inside our body, then it's helpful, at least whether it's true or not, whether it's technically accurate or not, it's helpful to bring our awareness into our body. Upon sitting with it, the way I've thought about it is like a mitten with a liner. So if you have a liner and a mitten that creates a cavity, so the energy comes, or the liner comes into the body and it creates a space where you can put your hand. So if you pull the liner out of the mitten, there's no space. Well, technically there is, because the glove exists in space. There's clearly space in the interior, but you can't put your hand in it. So for me, the, I don't know, higher self or the energy folds into the body, which creates an internal cavity, which feels like awareness. And it's actually that liner of energy that can leave the body. That's what happens when we have trauma. And so we need to fold back into ourselves to create a space for I am to actually live from the inside of us.
Yeah,
That's the closest that I can come to saying what it's like.
that's helpful. That's a helpful analogy, actually. I like it.
And so somebody says, of course there's space in the glove. I guess that's true, but can you put your hand in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, every time. So if we have thoughts or whatever, and we're drawn into our solar plexus naturally, that following the motion is also, life is trying to put its hand back in the glove, which we're trying to embody. That's where the flow will always take us. And what I normally do with most people is I help them follow that movement. Just like I did with Johanna or Johanna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll do one more period of meditation, but I'll just ask if anyone else has any questions or comments before we do. Okay, so I try and put it all together. And for all of us, we're coming at this from different angles and different ways. We'll be attracted or drawn to different parts of our experience. That's great. Doesn't matter where you're drawn, really. All that matters is there's something about what I'm sharing that helps you meditate and allows your process of being with yourself to deepen. So I close my eyes and I allow my focus to rest on the fact that I'm having one experience. I've only ever had one experience. I'm having one experience now. There's nothing outside of my experience. Everything is inside my experience. The birds are inside my experience. My body's inside my experience. And if my hand is in the glove, then I can feel the interior of my body at the same time that I hear the birds. And I notice two things: that everything within my experience is moving. It moves on its own. My thoughts, my dog, the fan on my computer, if you're listening, Blaze's voice. And the other part of this, the other element is that there is awareness. There is a space where this movement is allowed to happen. And so we can do nothing by witnessing these two qualities. And simultaneously, we get to be as awareness, which is to accept, to allow, to care for, to be fearless, and desireless. At the same time that we can care and desire and be afraid. And rather than those being conflicting with each other, they fit perfectly. Fear is a movement of energy. In fact, the more I feel it, the more it moves, and the less it becomes fear. Desire is a movement of energy. Also, the more I feel it, the more it moves, the less it feels like scarcity. So in this moment, I am allowing things to move. I'm saying yes to my body as it is, effortlessly, because there's awareness. And I take some moments to do nothing and watch this happen. It's not enough to be still. We also need movement. And it's not enough to move. We also need stillness. We need to move towards the future and be responsible. And we need to do so from a place of rest. Fortunately for us, that's what consciousness is. It is simultaneously a space that is rest and a living life that is moving and cares, that needs somewhere, that is going somewhere. And I get to have both of those things at the same time. I don't have to deny myself anything. The more that I rest in stillness, the more peace I will feel. The more peace that I feel, the more I will allow my body to move. The more I allow my body to move, the more alive I will feel. And being alive and being at peace live and fit perfectly together. Okay. Any final questions or comments?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. It's been really wonderful. Really enjoyed it. And, when I tune in to my felt experience now compared to my felt experience when I arrived, it's very different. So, and I've got a very strong sense of attunement in to that stillness at the same time. I feel very in my body at the same time as experiencing you and everyone else. So thank you.
Great. I'm happy that you report that. Go ahead. You speak too.
I'd like to say thank you also. I think you've given me wonderful pointers, and I want to watch the recording again, because I think there's an awful lot there. Things that are familiar and that ring true, but just put in a very sort of concise yet huge container, or well, not container, but like package. So thank you.
My pleasure.
And it's Johanna.
That saves me the trouble of saying it twice, 2 different ways. What I would add too is, Johanna, is that when we have, and you find out how it is for you, but my experience has been, is most of the places inside ourselves that we contract in a modern context, from my point of view, are relational, meaning we learn to contract based on relational experiences that we have in the world as we develop. And meditation, for me, doesn't support expression so clearly. And so here I am trashing meditation at the end of my meditation session. So my invitation is that it's in expanding this package and offering what I've found really helpful is, well, being in a meditative state, expressing as you were, by following your felt sense, by speaking the contractions and the energy that you hold in your body. And that can be done. That's what I do, but I do it with, you can do it with a somatic therapist. And this, the more movement there is for you, the easier meditation is going to be. For some people, they actually don't need movement to meditate. Their body could be completely frozen and they can relax into awareness and be, yep, I am. Other people, it's not like that. They need aliveness and movement. They need the stimulation that comes from living and connecting to really bring that to life. And I would suggest that that might be true for you. So I would really consider relational practices if you haven't already, because I think they would really light you up.
Thank you.
Anyone else before we go? Yeah, thank you so much. It really expanded my, maybe it's the wrong word. It's more of like a release of just being that life is just living through this container, and I'm just, there's just more freedom. I just feel like more freedom.
Life. May we all let life live.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
As much as you thank me, I thank you, because I'm doing what I love. This is my movement. This is what happens when I rest in stillness. So may all beings come to rest through moving and come to movement through rest.
Yeah, most of my meditations have been just being completely still. So the fact that you introduced this other way of perceiving meditation is, there's a freedom of it not being quite, there's just a freedom involved.
Like I always say to people, try feeling relaxed or free when you're holding your breath. Freedom is the experience of breath moving. You're not supposed to feel breathe. You're not supposed to feel free if you're holding your breath. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable so that you will learn to breathe again, and then you will feel free. So wherever we don't feel free, there is a place in which we are not breathing. And that's not because we're doing it wrong. And life is trying to breathe through us. Yeah. On my website, if you're already on my I'll send a link to this, but I have some guided meditations where I do my best to dually emphasize the flow of energy and the space of awareness. And these may be used before meditation. There's a whole bunch of different ones with different focuses, slightly different focuses that are kind of progressive. And you can use these as you like. I also offer all kinds of different things to people, from one-on-one work to group work. So I'll send you out an email with links to that. And thank you. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you.